kicking some butt, bro. Hey,
Hey, man, I love that shirt, bro.
dude. Hey, I'm gonna tell a story about. Hey,
Okay.
man. So we're already recording. So we do a podcast for my gym, mostly people in our community. But in the past 4 or 5 podcasts, we've kind of reached out to people outside our community from my life, like some authors, some local authors, and then for some reason I was looking at stuff and I came across, and I don't know where it's at. I came across a picture of us together with a bunch of people. Yeah, at the CrossFit Games in maybe 2014 or 15, and we're going to talk about it because I listened to a podcast with you on it, and you brought up one of the CrossFit Games where something happened with your police department. And
Yeah.
And that's when you gave me the shirt.
Oh, was it really? It was the same year. Yeah, that's right.
It was, man. So anyway, so this is the first time we're doing a video recording. So definitely just going to be, I'm going to definitely ask a lot of questions, but also free flow stories if you have any, and just kind of a fun dialogue. And anything that you don't want in, like you say, like, Mike, I shouldn't have said that, then we can just cut it out.
That's entirely possible for me to say something stupid. So
oh, dude. So anyway, we can edit it, and we may just keep the audio. Maybe we'll do the video on our webpage and Instagram and Facebook page. And then lastly, when we finish, I'm going to stop the recording. You'll see it stop on your end. Just do me a favor. Don't close out your browser until it tells you that the video is uploaded. It may take 5 or 10 minutes. So even though we'll turn it off, we'll walk away. You'll go on with your life. Just leave your browser open. Is that cool?
Brother, that sounds good. Sounds great, man.
All right, so here we go. I have my daughter here. She's our producer. She's in the back. Cool. Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Larry Moss, what is up, brother, man? Thanks so much for being here with us, man.
Hey, brother, thank you so much for asking me. I have missed you. You're one of my favorite people in the entire world, not just the CrossFit world, but the world, period, man. I've missed the heck out of you.
Dude, I ain't going to lie to you. When I left the CrossFit HQ LLC job, 2 years ago, I started a new job, but I miss it. I miss the people. I miss seeing you on the comp floor. I miss all those relationships, and there's a hole in my heart, man. That's the truth.
Oh, brother, I'm gonna. I can't even tell a specific story because you know as well as I do that in the world of CrossFit regionals and games, things happen, and there are very stressful situations that occur behind the scenes. We try to keep the crowd out of it so they don't know what's going on, and it could be something minor, but it never failed, Mike, that if any time. And I'm trying to use a whole lot of foul language. I am a sailor, so stuff happens. But shit could just be falling apart, and I could look at you, and you were just so rock solid, dude. You were just like, "Hey, man, we got this, bro. Let's just do your thing. I got it. Don't worry about it." And it was always. I always said it, dude. Anytime you and I were at a regional together, and it was throughout all of our it was Dylan, it was Mike, it was Kiki, it was Josh. Anytime Mike Martinez was on the scene, we knew that everything was covered, and we just had to do our thing. And you no matter how bad and chaotic it got, that you had it all in one sock, and we were going to be okay.
Dude, you are way too kind. And
I mean it, man.
And I listened to a podcast to do some research on you, and how you became an MC, but even before then, I met you like in 2010, or like even before you started that journey. Because you came to Alamo, you just came walking into Alamo CrossFit to buy some shirts.
That's exactly right. I had blown my knee. I torn an ACL, and it was on a SWAT deal, and I would really love to have a cool story, but it's not. We were on an obstacle course. I was finishing the obstacle course, the last obstacle, the kiddie obstacle body could do, and I jacked my knee up, and so I had trained and recovered and rehabbed and had done a couple of half marathons, and we were in San Antonio doing a half marathon, and y'all's shirts were everywhere in the CrossFit community at the time. I was like, man, we got to go to this Alamo CrossFit place and get these cool shirts.
Right.
And yet, so you and I we went in. It was Buddy Tote and his wife Ursula, my wife Summer. We all came in. And we talked for probably 10 minutes. I'm such a bad stud because I just ran this really slow half marathon. You're telling me about all your running stuff. I'm like, oh, well, I'll just go back over here and run some more.
Whatever. I was gonna ask probably. Oh man.
No, you guys were great. But then you and I encounter each other 2 years later, or maybe 3 years later, and I'm like, man, we've met before. So it was a small community kind of from the get-go.
Yeah.
But I think that was because it gave us just that microscopic amount of history, so that we had a little bit of a connection when it all started. So we weren't total strangers, even though we kind of were at the time.
Yeah, it was. I remember you walked in, and because we had this iconic ask your doctor if getting off your ass is right for you. And the funny thing is, Larry, I've pitched that T-shirt to my current CrossFit community, and they want no part of it.
Really?
Well, they think it's a little bit, not politically correct. Everything's so PC these days. They're like, you want to have that shirt, with our great community. I'm like, but it's so right and it's so fun.
Oh, it is.
But it might be edgy.
Yeah. It's a little bit edgy, but that's okay, man. That's okay. CrossFit's supposed to be, a little bit edgy, a little bit daring. You're doing something kind of scary, so you should have some, kind of uncomfortable shirts.
Sure.
Nothing good happens in your comfort zone. So I mean, just
Yeah, and then so you came to the gym, and then I got the job in 2011, after regionals 2011. But you started your journey with CrossFit even before then. You were part of the Houston regional, and even before I came on board, I just heard how hot it was out there.
Oh God,
the bars were hot. It was like on a farm or something.
It was, we were in, I think we were in Tomball, Texas I can't remember the name of the farm, but it was legitimately, the door opened up behind me, creepy. That would be my dog coming in.
Don't worry,
so pay no attention to the door open.
Don't worry, my dog's right here next to me, man.
But yeah, we were on a farm. I can't remember the name of the farm. And the regional was actually on a basketball court. We had the rig set up down the middle. And just to give you I had no idea what I was doing. We had gotten word that they needed a floor MC. I didn't really know what that was. I don't have a problem talking in front of people. I'm an instructor, and you're the same way, Mike. You can get in front of people, and you're comfortable.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, I like talking about CrossFit. We had a team from our gym at the time competing, and they were all my friends. I'm like, well, we're going anyway. I wonder, I'll volunteer to help out whoever's doing it. So my coach at the time, John Wilson, contacted the folks and said, hey, he'd like to throw his hat in the ring. They're like, yeah, have him come on down. So I get there, and the folks running everything was a really great couple. I walked in and said, hey, I'm here to MC. What do I need to point me in the right direction? Who do I need to hook up with? And they're like, well, hey, you head over to the floor. It's going to be over in this basketball court. And they had me go meet the competition director. And I got there, and somebody slapped a microphone in one hand and a heat sheet in the other and said, have at it. So it was pretty much, it was OJT from the get-go. And I was also the only MC. It was 3 days. It was 108, 110 on the floor. We legitimately they had to cover the bars, the pull-up bars with like insulation to keep them from burning. But that was discovered after the first group of athletes went and legitimately had second-degree burns on their hands. Like, we had athletes with their hands wrapped for the rest of the competition because it had just gotten so hot. And that was regionals kind of in its fledgling era, so it was a learning experience.
Yeah,
it was a great 3 days. I loved it. I was hooked after that.
Yeah, and even though I started coaching, and being a part of the community in 2010, Larry, I had no idea what regionals was, man. I had no. I mean, I didn't even hear about it until after it happened. And even then, I think the Open was brand new in 2011 because they did sectional
2012,
in 2010.
Right.
And,
so it was all new. It was all new. And I have to tell a story on that one, on that particular regional. It was probably we were in day 3, and I didn't know what kind of job I was doing. I had no one really knew. None of us really kind of knew. The competition side of it was kind of familiar to the folks that were judging, and doing their thing. So that was kind of plowed ground. But the MC side was, none of us really knew what that was supposed to be like. And I thought I was doing an okay job. I was butchering names. I was getting the workouts wrong. Just all this normal stuff of the very first event. But about day 3, a helicopter comes flying in and lands in a field off to the side, and we see a bunch of people get out and kind of come towards the competition floor. I didn't realize it was a group of folks, didn't really recognize anybody except for one person that I realized after, and it was it was not regionals like we were used to, where there was thousands of people. There were a couple of hundred people there. Yeah. It was an outside festival environment, so I mean, you could kind of see what was going on. I look over and it's Dave Castro walking around. He's talking to athletes, and he and I had no interaction at the time, because I was working. He was doing his thing. He had no clue, of course, who I was, but I knew who Dave was. His time there ends. They hop in the helicopter and they fly off. And I talked to the competition director and asked us, like, hey, was there any insight from, of course, asking how I was doing.
Right.
And he said, he said you need a lot of work. I was like, okay. Well, that's
yeah.
Okay. This will be it. This will be the last thing I ever do. And then later on, this was early in 2011, late 2011. There was a UFC Fan Expo also in Houston, and Matt Munson, who ran regionals that year in 2011, were set up to run that particular event, and they were going to do the CrossFit side of it. They were going to do a CrossFit All-Star competition. So they reached out because they were pleased with how I'd done. And again, none of us really knew what it was supposed to look like. So they said I did great. I was like, okay, cool. And asked if I wanted to come back. Of course, I volunteered the first year for regionals. I volunteered again to do this. Brought the wife and kids. So they're big UFC fans. So they got to do the walk around of the UFC event. And the All-Star event, I'm thinking, is going to be still local athletes. I didn't realize until I got there that it was an all-star CrossFit event. That you had the who's who of CrossFit world there. Stacy Tovar's there, Rich Froning's there, Chris Spieler. Just all your CrossFit heroes are competing. And again, I'm the only MC. Matt and Pam ended up having to back out. Well, Tim Chan. And Dave Castro ended up coming in and running the competition. So that's who I worked with for 2 days straight. And I was pretty sure after working, and I've told the story before, after working with Dave for a couple of days, that was probably the last time I'd ever work in CrossFit, because I didn't get a good vibe. I didn't know Dave, and I didn't know how to take him. And I thought, I've been screwing the pooch on this for 2 days. I'll just go back to being a cop. And I get a call later on in 2012, early 2012. I get a call from this guy named Rory McKernan. And I was like, all right, who is this? I know this really isn't Rory McKernan. Who is this? Right. He's like, no, man, it's Rory McKernan. Tony Budding wants to talk to you. We'd like to have you come to CrossFit HQ and for a media seminar and talk to you about announcing the CrossFit Games. And so, of course, man, I was on the first thing smoking to Northern California, and we did the media summit. Got to meet a whole bunch of really great media folks. And again, I thought I was just going to, have a small hand in it, but actually did each weekend did a regional that year, and was lucky enough to go to the CrossFit Games. I did the entire women's division by myself. So wow. It was awesome. That was the start of it. Now we've got a multitude of MCs, and the workload spread. I look back and I'm like, man, I don't know how I talked for 3 days straight by myself. And so now we've got that. And you've met all the guys, Dylan and Noah and Mike and Kiki and Josh, and all those guys are great. So yeah, we've definitely spread the load out, and things have changed dramatically, obviously, over the last 8 years. Now this last year, of course, I was at home with everybody else this last year.
So were you?
Could do it COVID.
So, and educate me. So have you been on as a CrossFit employee, or are you just the guy they call in to come and do some weekend work, and you're the go-to?
No, sir. I'm just a contract worker for the season.
Wow.
Which is great, which is perfect. I mean, because I have I'm a police officer for my normal bill paying job, which is pretty time consuming. So that worked out, for during when we had regionals, it worked out real well. That I would block out my time, not take any vacation throughout the year, save all my compensatory time, and that's what I spent it on was 4 weekends in a row, and then 2 weeks or a week or two during the summer for the games, which was, of course, the money was great. But a lot of it is about relationships, and it's about seeing people like you and seeing people. They become your friends, they become your family.
Yeah.
And not saying I do it for nothing, but it definitely the money's just a nice touch to being able to see everybody to a summer reunion every year.
Yeah, because when I got the dream job of being the 2012 and beyond South Central Regional Director, we as the regional director, that's one thing I have no control over. We don't have control over the media presence. The media,
Right.
it's always its own entity. So when I knew you're going to be the MC, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And then you showed up, and then your voice is iconic, I think, with community.
Thank you.
Right? Your voice, and maybe a few others as well, but there's so many MCs. But your voice, you just have this sexy, right? This, like, let's get Larry Moss to do the intros, and here comes Destiny, here comes Frony, whatever. And I remember as regional directors, little insights, at least for me and some others, when we had our regional directors meeting, we'd always want to know, what MCs are we getting? Who are we getting? Who's going to be the head judge, and who's going to be the MC?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, damn it. So I had you, I think, for the first couple years. Mm-hmm. And then I don't think I ever had you again. When I did the Atlantic Regional, I didn't have you. Maybe I did have you 1 year.
I think I was there 1 year.
Yeah.
We were there together.
Yeah. And so how do they decide who goes where? Do they give you guys the pick of the litter, or are there favorite regionals you guys like to go to or MC? And you can be open and honest.
I really don't have a good solid answer to that one, Mike. I really don't. I think proximity wise, because I live in Louisiana, and majority of the South Central regionals when we had or even when it was the super regional, were always in Texas. They were in Dallas or San Antonio or somewhere that was pretty much driving distance. And if it was that close, I drove.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that might have been a deciding factor financially, that it was just easier. Hey, he's going to be basically a local. He's going to drive. Yeah. They didn't have to book a flight or do anything crazy. Early on when there was just a few MCs and we were doing every weekend, I was lucky enough to do South Central every year, and I didn't have any say in it. I was just assigned weekends, but I always kind of let anybody that would listen, like, hey man, that's my folks. Not that I don't butcher names in the South also, but I know everybody. I knew most of the athletes and all the staff. I mean, we're all friends. Or a great number were friends. But I was lucky enough to do that. Central East was always kind of, I went there, 1 year, and just, it kind of stuck. And then the other 2 weekends were just kind of wherever they sent me. There was a little bit of variety where I got to do NorCal 1 year, which was a great experience. I only got to do it once, but it was really cool.
Yeah.
New York a couple of times, and then Southeastern Florida on a number of occasions. So I mean, it was great. I mean, it was always awesome. But you're right, though. It was always who's for us. It was who's the regional director and who's the head judge.
Yeah, because you want those. You want those key players, because they're this.
Yes.
They help make the event better. The athletes are the stars, no doubt. But as someone behind the curtain, you knew that you're going to get class act in the MC and great head judging, and then. That's interesting. So I think, and then I remember when you brought Dylan in his first gig to the South Central Regional. How did that go down? Yes. How was he introduced to the emceeing in the CrossFit world?
All right. Well, we're talking about Dylan Malitsky. So Dylan, if you're listening, man, I love you. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. I was doing the Southeast Regional the weekend before I was coming to San Antonio to see you, and that was 2013, I believe. Yes. And Dylan had done like I did. He was a volunteer MC, and poor Dylan, he and another volunteer MC were told that they were doing the whole show. It was just them. And then I show up, and again, I'm very self-deprecating. I mean, you're only as good as your last gig. So I don't really consider myself anybody. But I guess, and Dylan and I have had this conversation numerous times. And Dylan's like, man, when you showed up, he's like, oh, they brought in the big guns from HQ. And I'm like, I'm from Louisiana, dude. I'm not from HQ. I'm from Lake Charles, dude. I'm nobody. But when they finally explained that to me, that they were promised floor time, I was like, oh man, guys, it's 3 days, you've got lots of time, and as well as I do. Early on Friday morning, early on Saturday morning, you got some heats where the MC would probably like somebody else to hop in and help. Yeah. So Dylan did. Dylan and Lou Calcagnosa. Lou, if you're listening, I love you too. They were the two volunteer MCs, and man, I worked with both of them. They worked together individually, and then I worked with each one. And man, just Dylan and I clicked, and we got into a couple of heats where. We had some high-speed Southeast athletes that were going head-to-head. And there was one heat that we called that was so intense that I remember I was dizzy I've never had that happen before or since, but I was putting so much into it that I was legitimately dizzy when we got done. And it was because of the vibe that we had going. And so when we got done with the weekend, I reached out to some folks at HQ, Justin Berg, and I just said, hey, just to let you know, it was a great weekend. I've encountered this kid named Dylan Malitsky. He's one of the volunteer MCs. And I said a bunch of nice things about him. And I said, if there's any way that we can get him into another regional later on, because I was working 3 more by myself.
Right.
So I'd love to have him, in South Central with me in Texas. And Justin, JB being a great dude that he is. He called me back and said, hey, man, we're going to make that happen. And so I waited a little while, and my phone rang, and it was Dylan. He's like, dude, I just got a call from Justin Berg. I'm on the next flight. I'll meet you in Texas. So, and after that, we got him in, and he was part of the crew after that.
Yeah.
And again, I played that. I just made a very small connection. JB had heard Dylan on the microphone. So he'd actually, it wasn't like I was telling him anything he didn't know. I was just trying to reassure him that hey, man, I think this kid's kid. I mean, he's way younger. He's half my age, so I can call him a kid. But he's definitely got something, and he's gone on to do above and beyond the MC world. He's MC'd everything under the sun, overseas, here in the U.S., and he's currently working for Loud and Live, doing great things over there with their organization.
Yeah, isn't he the director, I think, of Wadapalooza, or am I misspeaking?
Yeah. No, he, and you know what, I've talked to him. I haven't caught up completely. Just, man, I'd say the last year's been just kind of a blur for everybody. But for sure, yeah, he was definitely the head man on the field, so to speak, on the ground for Wadapalooza. But Wadapalooza, it was bought out, for lack of a better word, by Loud and Live. And they run several competitions, and I think Dylan has a hand in all of that.
Yeah,
doing organization. He's jet setting all over the place. He's a stud, and still a great athlete and a wonderful guy.
Yeah, you just said something when you started talking about Dylan, and when you said it, I got goosebumps because you were spot on. I remember you guys at different events, and I don't remember this ever happening again. When there was a big heat going on with some people head to head, you guys were just going back and forth, giving that live feed, like, hey, 10 reps left, so-and-so, maybe it's Fortunato, who knows, and 8 reps behind, and you guys just handing it like these dueling handover MCs, keeping the action so loud and so relevant. I remember that vividly.
We were very fortunate that we developed a quick rapport with each other and just a trade secret from the floor. I would say, especially those big heats where where it's hot and heavy, and you've got top tier athletes that are duking it out. Generally the acoustics on the floor are not super, and the crowd can get super loud, which is great. So I would say probably, and most of the MCs would back me up, I'd say 80% of the time we can't hear each other. I have no idea what Dylan's saying. I have no idea what Josh or Kiki or Mike or Noah or any of those guys are saying, or Brenton. And it's just you've kind of got to. So if you're vibing with that person, then it doesn't matter what they're saying. Just, it's important that you don't. You try to repeat exactly what they say, but if you can't hear them, you develop a rapport with somebody. So I knew Dylan was doing his thing on my side. I was doing my thing on my side, and every once in a while you catch a word and you'd be able to kind of play off of that. And you kind of develop that with everybody. I can do that with Brenton Rogo. I can do that with Mike Richards, Kiki Dixon, Josh Gallegos, and Dylan. But Dylan it was just from Jump Street. Just good connection. A very odd and a great things for him. So
that's awesome. And then, so when you guys get the call to go to the games, who assigns, or do you guys get to pick if you're going to do the main stage or there's someone behind the curtain moving the chess pieces?
Well, I always look and just kind of take it just a step back as far as getting the call for the games. That's kind of this. You're hitting it on the head. We generally, you kind of have an idea. And here in the last few years, it was Sean Woodland. Prior to Sean's departure from HQ, Sean would be the one making the call that, hey, man, you're congratulations. We'd love to have you come out and do the games. But we all, at least I do. I always considered the regionals or the lead up season to that kind of our CrossFit Open and our regionals for us qualifying. For me qualifying for the games, to do good enough work throughout the season that HQ's like, we'd like to have him back. And I don't know if do good enough work or just not screw up too many times where people caught it other than me. and because I mean, if you can pick a mistake on the mic, I've made it. Big ones, bad ones. A lot of people didn't notice other than me and maybe the folks in my ear behind the scenes. But when we get that call, and typically in the last few years, leading up to it, was Sean Woodland calling saying, "Hey, man, you guys are, we're going to have you come in, and I'm going to pair you with this," and they would mix it up to some extent. A lot like I normally worked with Dylan the first few years. We brought Mike Richards. I say we brought Mike Richards in. Mike Richards came in. There was also an interesting story. But Mike Richards came in, so we added him to the mix. And we had Kiki Dixon and Josh Gallegos also partners. And so they would work together. Dylan and I would work together. But then the folks at HQ kind of started mixing us up a little bit. Where 1 year I worked with Kiki the entire time, and Mike and Josh worked together. And then we brought in Brenton Rogo, and Brenton also worked with Dylan. So and again, you got to where you could work with everyone equally well. You may vibe a little better with one person. You're maybe a little bit more familiar. I know Kiki and Josh have a storied history of announcing and work super well together, but I've worked great with both of them as well. And they work great with everybody also. But yeah, the decision wasn't really, you could throw out, "Hey man, I'd sure like to do X, Y, and Z." And you were kind of, whatever the powers that be decision made, you were just, for me, and I can't speak for everyone, I definitely wouldn't do that. But for me, I always looked at the games, one, as an honor, because it's the CrossFit Games is the culmination of the Open and the regional season when we had regionals, or the different events. But that doing that event was kind of everybody's ticket punch to do whatever other events throughout the year that came along the way. Because we have lots of folks that want to be MCs, but there's not a ton of CrossFit Games MCs. So if you want to market yourself to do something like that, that was always, having that, in your resume was kind of a make or break deal, for you to move to do other stuff throughout the year. Because the game season, even when we were doing regionals, you're talking, 3, maybe 4 weekends and games. So, you're talking 5 weeks out of the year, 5 weekends out of the year that you were working. Which again, for me is not bad. But at the height of it, I was doing 4 weekends plus the games, plus 5 or 6 other weekends, maybe 7. So, 12, 13 weekends a year traveling, which has been great. It's been really weird this year not going anywhere. The last event I did was Wadapalooza, which was last February, March timeframe, and haven't traveled anywhere. It's been really, I'm sure a lot of folks are in the same boat. So it was really weird. It was really nice being home, except for the hurricanes we had a couple months ago. That kind of put a damper on things.
Yeah, so. And like you said earlier, home for you is Lake Charles. And I heard you mention, and I had no idea that you were there when Andy Rios did the Murph on the Santa Monica beach.
I wasn't there. I wasn't there. No. I wish I had been. Yeah. Gosh, I wish I had been. No, but I felt like I was there because that's what started. Again, we have a SWAT team, a tactical unit, our police department that I've been a part of for about 16 years now. And when I first started, it was a very basic obstacle course, 1.5 mile run. Just it's kind of rudimentary, so to speak. We got a much larger obstacle course built at a local department that allowed us, a neighboring department that allowed us a very legit military style, brutal obstacle course. We utilized that and a run and a shooting deal, and that was our qualification, our tryouts and our qualifications. But gosh, man, I guess it was. So that would have been probably 2011, 2012. The video came out of Andy Rios, Dave, and Greg Amundsen, and the guys from Santa Monica PD SWAT doing Murph on the beach. And I was very lucky that I was assistant team leader, maybe a team leader at the time. But the rest of the team leadership, we were all CrossFitters, and everybody bought in hook, line, and sinker. We were all working out every afternoon after work or before work. So it was a great environment at the time. And I jokingly said, in passing in the office one day, I said, "Man, that's what we ought to do. We ought to do, we'd all done Murph. We knew how bad it sucked. We ought to do that as our qualifier." And then I laughed. And then Buddy Toten, one of the senior team leaders, like, "Hey, man, we need to figure out a way to make that happen."
Yeah.
I was like, man, we're not going to, we've got half the team that CrossFit, the other half are kind of averse to it. Could probably our fault for talking about it so much and being just big Kool-Aid drinkers. And we did, man. We brought it to the team. We're like, hey, and the problem was with the obstacle course and running, we'd endured a lot of injuries, mine included. We'd had a couple of torn ACLs, a couple of broken ankles. We'd had some problems with people falling on the obstacle course. It was hard to train for because it wasn't ours. We didn't have access to it. At all times. Right. So we wanted something functional that the guys could kind of train for on their own. And I mean, if you're listening to the podcast, I'm sure you're familiar with Murph. I mean, it was running, push-ups, sit-ups. I'm sorry, push-ups, pull-ups, and squats. So it's virtually something minus the pull-ups, the push-ups and the squats you can do, in your living room watching television. So our rationale was to give the guys the opportunity to train wherever they were. Other than pull-ups, so we invested. We chipped in money. The city was real hesitant to buy us any CrossFit equipment because it was new at the time. So we raised some money. We raised some money. Spent $6,000-7,000 on equipment. And got a rig and got all the stuff that we needed, and started training. And over about an 18-month period, we introduced the guys to a quarter Murph and a half throughout training days throughout the year. A quarter Murph, half Murph, 3/4 Murph, full Murph, no time limit, and then full Murph under 60 minutes. And at the end of the 18 months, we had the whole team knocking it out, which was there's a lot of and you're a military guy, so you can imagine the volume of bitching that was going on for us changing something. But the volume of pride afterwards completely counteracted all the complaining. And the guys that complained the most were also the ones who were the most prideful. We were around other teams or around just the department, because the department's got a very basic PT, and we're out here doing something off the wall insane. Now, all that being said, we've been doing it now for about going on 10 years now. It's been since 2011. And the National Tactical Officers Association has come out with a standardized PT test for SWAT teams throughout the country. And I will say Greg Amundsen was on that committee. So Greg's a fire breather from back in the old days. And we thought, hey guys, we're going to give this a shot. So we did it on a training day, and it was terrible. It was absolutely horrible. We have guys that passed Murph with no problems that struggled on a number of the things, and it's all very simple stuff. It's just kind of laid out a little bit different. It's all set up with a running clock. Starts with a 800-meter run, goes into a 200-meter run with a gas mask, vest, carry, and weight. Then right into 3 minutes of burpees, and then into 2 minutes of air squats with the mask and the vest back on, and then 1 minute of pull-ups. So it's a much shorter, much more gruesome PT test. And so we as a team, and we had a big meeting about it because again, I'll say this was my baby, but it was something that I brought up jokingly and that was tasked with, and we brought to fruition. So I met with the guys, and again, everybody's had been very much so on board with Murph, almost to the point where we'd gotten comfortable with it, where we had guys that I could tell would coast, because we had a 60-minute time limit. So some of these guys that I know are capable of doing, sub 40 were coming in at 50 minutes because it just was what it was. So I brought it up to the guys and said, listen, I think we need to explore the option of maybe changing. And it's hard for me to say that because this is kind of my baby. I brought this in, but my affinity and my connection to this shouldn't be what holds the team back from moving forward. So we tried it. The guys hated the new one. It was terrible. So that's the one they chose. They wanted to move forward and do the new PT because it was. I applaud them for that because it was completely out of their comfort zone and they wanted to move on and do something tougher.
Yeah.
Now all that was done pre-hurricane. Post-COVID, pre-hurricane, we did it in August. We did a walkthrough of it, and hey guys, we're going to do it again in October for time. And for the folks that are not down here in the South or haven't been watching the news, we had a pretty significant hurricane event in August, Hurricane Laura, and then that was backed up by a second equally as devastating hurricane in October. And we lost our gym, part of it, CrossFit Breaching Hole, and you're wearing our shirt, which I appreciate. The gym was off. I'll send you pictures. It was completely just devastated. That was our office.
Is it back up and running now?
No, it's. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's a city property, so it has to go through all the city, state, and FEMA red tape for anything to happen. So what we did, we were able to salvage our equipment, which was great. The rig's taken apart. It's stashed in a Connex right now. Both of our rowers survived. I'll use that as basically. We had one ski erg left. Our assault bikes were just, they survived, but the rain destroyed them. All the bumpers and bars made it. Right. So the bulk of our stuff, we have a couple of freestanding pull-up rigs that we still have. So the temporary location that we're in now, we have something. So the guys were working out when I left. So they've got the opportunity to work out. We're just kind of waiting to see what. Yeah. I don't say we're homeless. We have somewhere to stay at this point. We have somewhere to work out. But it's just not. It's not the same where we would. Again, it was great. Again, I'm very blessed that I could walk out of my office and go 10 feet, and the gym was right there. And at 4:30 in the afternoon, when the whistle blew and I was off work, I could walk out there and there'd be 8 or 10 guys get ready to start a workout. I could throw my PT gear on, and we could work out as a team. And unfortunately, we've kind of lost that. For the moment, so we'll see. Hopefully, things will. I mean, we're still on the. Mike, they're still picking up debris.
I didn't know that, Larry.
I'll send you pictures, brother. It was catastrophic. I would say we have a 200-person department, and I would say easily 10%. 20 of our officers lost everything. Homes completely destroyed, and when I mean destroyed, I mean there was they went back and there was a slab left. So we had one. Well, I shouldn't laugh. We had one of our officers who survived. His home survived the first hurricane. Trees down everywhere, and I'll send you a picture. I was actually at that point. I was at my home for the first hurricane. I wasn't at the PD. I was at home. And the morning after the hurricane, I tried to leave, and I was able to get about 30 yards down the main road, and the downed trees were so bad I couldn't get out of my area for 2 days. It was we had my wife had evacuated, which was great. So it was just me, but I had a generator running, so I kind of had the house to myself. But I couldn't get out, and that was indicative. That wasn't an isolated deal. That was indicative of a lot of folks in our area. But we had one of our officers that survived
what hurricane?
We had
Hurricane Laura.
Hurricane Laura was in August, and then Hurricane Delta was in October. And we really didn't think we were going to get clipped again so soon. By Hurricane Delta. As a matter of fact, we had a big SWAT training deal set up the Thursday before it hit. We were going to Texas because we didn't have there was nowhere to train here. All of our sites had been destroyed. So Beaumont Police Department was nice enough to step up and say, "Hey guys, you guys come over here. You're going to train at our site. We're going to train with you guys. We're going to feed you." Oh, we just had this big day. Well, then the Hurricane Delta comes in, so we had to cancel everything. And then for our guys, at least during Hurricane Laura, that was. I think it was 28 days that we worked straight nights doing anti-looting, and it was also it was 20. I was 29 days without power. So my poor little generator that was brand new ran for virtually 29 days straight, with the exception of downtime for maintenance. So it was a very interesting. Matter of fact, the podcast that I did with the guys, I did during the hurricane, which I had like a lamp plugged into the generator, and I was on my phone. It was just a train wreck. So this is nice. I got lights in here. I have power. I have internet. It's awesome.
You made a comment about the Murph, and it's so true. You said that your guys they get used to it. It's like, and it's just kind of part of your physical being. It's like you think Murph, right. All right, put the vest on. I'll do under an hour. But yep. That's kind of like indicative of CrossFit. You first hear Grace or Isabel or Murph or Cindy, and you're going like, what? 20 minutes of push-ups?
Yeah, what?
And then 3-4 years later, you're like, oh, I think I'll just do 12 rounds of Cindy today. I'll take it easy. Right? And then
no, you're 100% right.
Yeah, it's funny how you said then, I remember watching that video with Andy Rios on the beach, and I remember I had just started my CrossFit journey a year and a half in the making, and I'm like, what are these guys doing? They're on a beach. They're wearing a vest. They're doing 200 push-ups. What is going on?
In the sand.
In the sand. And then here we are now. It's like, we want to do Larry. Let's do Murph without the vest. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll speed it up. We'll do a Murph without the vest today.
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting to. Because it kind of just it's such a great community. It really is, because that video came out. We made the decision to do what we did. I hunted down an email for Andy Rios. He's at Simi Valley CrossFit, and Andy.
Oh yeah.
And so I shot Andy an email. Said, "Hey man, we're getting ready to do this. I know you don't know me from Adam. I'm this cop from Louisiana. Blah blah blah." And he sent me some advice, and it wasn't so much on the Murph, it was dealing with administration, and you know how it is. It's generally the behind the scenes stuff that's tougher than dealing with the boots on the ground guys. And so he gave me a lot of really good advice on how to deal with things. And then, 2 years later, I'm smoking a cigar and having a whiskey with him at the CrossFit Games after party. So I was, and Andy may or may not be listening, but I was actually a little bit starstruck. I'm like, man, this dude was in that video, and we talked, and now we talk all the time. Not recently. I haven't heard from him in a minute, but he's one of my favorite people. He's talk about a stud. He's a stud.
Yeah, he sent me a picture from the games this year.
Did he? Oh, really?
Coffee. Yeah, he sent him and a guy named Esteban. Esteban was a guy that used to work for me. You know Esteban. Yeah, he was a volunteer for me at the games at Carson, and he eventually worked his way up and now he works for Chris Cummings. And so at the games this year, I guess Andy was there, and he sent me a selfie of him and Esteban with their masks on, with the CrossFit Games in the back. Like, we missed.
That's
you.
Awesome.
Like, we missed you, bro. I'm like, dude, stop. Okay, I shouldn't have left that job. My bad. I missed all that. Hey, so let me take a few steps back, and I didn't know this until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't know that you were prior service Navy.
Yeah.
And why didn't you stay in? What was it that made you? Because it's funny, you're Navy, and then all of a sudden you're on SWAT and you're working for CrossFit.
Well, I was just a swabby, Mike. It was nothing special. It really wasn't. Like I said, I was a weapons technician. I worked on a special weapons unit, which sounds awesome. But we actually worked on airdrop special weapons, airdrop ordnance. So I'll say that, and people are like, "Oh," I'm like, "No, it's not. No, I don't even like the water. I don't even know why I went in the Navy." But I have Top Gun. Yeah. I was influenced by Top Gun.
So you joined the Navy from Louisiana because you're from
I did.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yep. Boot camped in San Diego. Did my A school in Coronado, and then I went to I crossed to the East Coast and picked up the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is an aircraft carrier that was in pre-commission. It was a Newport News Naval Shipyard, so I picked her up there. We finished building her. I watched people build her. And then we sailed her around South America and home ported out of Alameda, California. And it was a great experience. That was right around the time the Desert Storm was kicking. So we were there for kind of the tail end of that. Super interesting. Had a great time. Came time to leave the boat. I went to Naval Weapons Station Yorktown, so I went back to the East Coast, which is Yorktown, Virginia. And one of the biggest reasons I got out was I'd done a couple of years in Yorktown. And this is a very strange time in our nation when we were removing nuclear weapons from seagoing vessels, with the exception of submarines. And that's what I worked on. I worked on special airdropped ordnance on aircraft carriers. And my job went away. So I actually I could have changed jobs, and I actually looked into being an intelligence specialist, going IS. But it's just at the time I thought, I for whatever reason, I wanted to explore options outside. They came up with a civilian position at the base that I was at, doing the exact same thing I had been doing. We knew it was short term, but the money was great. I left on a Friday in uniform, processed out, came back 2 weeks later in civilian clothes, had the same locker, doing the same job. So I did that for about a year or so, and really had always been interested in law enforcement. Henrico County Sheriff's Department was hiring, which was a ways north of, or a ways away from Yorktown, Williamsburg area, in the Richmond area. It was the only law enforcement agency that was hiring in the mid-'90s in that area. It was a correctional setting, which I wasn't keen on, but it was also a law enforcement job. I was lucky enough to get a position there, and did 6 years there, got promoted to sergeant. And honestly, though corrections was not what I really wanted to do for the rest of my life, I didn't really have any plans on leaving, because I'd been promoted to a good position. I'd worked in the training division, and I was a firearms instructor. I was a DT instructor. I checked a lot of boxes that I wanted to check. And then along about 2002, 2003, my father developed esophageal cancer. And it's amazing that, I'm sitting in my beautiful apartment in Richmond. I'd worked my way from I'd gone through a couple of relationships, but I'd worked my way into a really nice, swanky apartment overlooking the pool. Kind of had it, kind of everything going the way I wanted to go. And then you get a call from your folks and say, hey, your dad's got cancer. And immediately I was like, I'm moving home. I'm not going to be here when my dad passes away, because we kind of knew that the prognosis was not good.
Yeah.
So, I made some moves, made some phone calls. My brother had been in law enforcement in the area, so he kind of pointed me in the direction of the Lake Charles Police Department. Probably I had a little bit of money put away, which was probably a good thing. Packed up my stuff, moved home, rented a little place right around the corner from my folks, so I could be there for my dad. Did all my application stuff. I started the application process before I left. Matter of fact, I'd flown back a couple times to do the civil service testing, the PT test, all that, to get the thing started. It's a slow process. Which we've tried to speed up significantly. It was probably a 6 to 8 month process when I started it then. And a matter of fact, moved home, still had no confirmation of a job. Just figured, if that didn't pan out, I would find something else. But, family it's really kind of weird how my priorities just completely shifted with one phone call.
Right.
But I was lucky enough to get a position with the police department, and was able to be here for my father throughout his chemotherapy, and unfortunately he went on hospice, and he passed away August of 2003. But I was here for that. I wasn't 1,500 miles away, so I was here for my mom, and was able to be here for the last my mother recently passed away as well, just this last year, and but I was here the entire time, so that I appreciate that, my friend. But I was here for it, and I think she appreciated that. I know I certainly did, and honestly, it was good to come home. I grew up here, and not that I could have moved on to a patrol setting in Virginia. But coming home and being able to give back to the community that you grew up in is great.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I'm very, very blessed. I work with a really great group of people. It's not a big department. I came from a department there of 400 or 500 people, and we have 200 or so here. That being said, we have a great group of folks. I've been the time that I spent there has definitely set me up appropriately for the position that I have with the department. I came in as I was the old man when I came in at 35, which God, I wish I was the old man at 35 right now.
Right.
I'm the old man at 52, and I'm feeling every 52 every year of it. But it allowed me to have some things that I was able to bring to the table. So I was on patrol for a few years. Actually, when I blew my knee out in 2008, when I went out on to have surgery, a position came open in our training division, and the position of recruiter came open, and I was very interested in that. Very interested in having an opportunity to give back to the department, and maybe have a hand in the folks that are coming on. And so I stayed in I took that position, started doing recruiting, started pulling in new young police officers for the department. Along with training them. Stayed in training from 2008 until 2015 when the SWAT Commander slot opened up, and I was selected for that. But I still do the recruiting. I'm the SWAT Commander and the departmental recruiter, and it's a I'll tell you, it's a full-time job.
Yeah, and then you do all the emceeing. So
yep.
So going back to regionals and the games, I'm gonna put you on the spot here with a few shotgun questions. So
oh gosh.
All right. So brace yourself. So
okay,
you're full-time SWAT. You do the MC when hopefully regionals or sanctionals come back. Wadapalooza, the games. What is your favorite or most memorable moment from regionals? When you're sitting around talking to your friends, you say, "I can't believe I saw this happen," or "I emceed this incident."
I would think, and Mike, you'll have to forgive me. It all kind of runs together. I don't remember exactly what year of regionals it was. I wanted to say it was 2018. It was the year that I was on the microphone at the announcement of who was going to the games, and was able to announce Scott Panchek and Saxon Panchek going to the games. And Saxon captured the 5th spot that year, and was able to go to the games with his brother.
Really?
And that was super. And again, being the MC, it's like, you've got, I've got the results. So, it's like, it's like you've got a secret, and you want to hang on to it as long as you can. That's one that, and I can't, if I remember correctly, I think it was Nick. It was the last two folks up were Saxon and Nick Block. And Nick Block is a great athlete. Nick has since qualified for the games as well. But but just Saxon's such a good kid, such a young man, and just such an animal. But just for he and his brother to be able to qualify that, I thought that's probably one of my favorite moments to be able to. There's been lots of them, but that's the one when you ask, that's the first one that pops in my head.
Okay, then how about for the CrossFit Games? What's been like? You're like, man, this is awesome memory.
Oof, that's going to be that's split, and it's not one particular moment, but it was, and you're probably aware of it as well. Anytime at night on the tennis court when the big dogs were out,
God,
when the athletes, when the top tier, and again, anybody at the CrossFit Games is exception of me, is a top tier athlete. Even our other MCs are super fit. But when your top 10 athletes were on the floor for a heat on Friday night under the lights, especially in Carson, there was just nothing like that. Now that being said, when we moved to Madison, inside the arena, when it was packed in 2019, when the ladies were out there, and it just happened to be I was working the ladies that year. When the ladies were out there for one of their finals, I've never heard a sports arena that loud. Where it was just amazing. I got chills just now thinking about it. It was just that again. It's not so much a moment, but it was a feeling. And again, you have to. We get asked. All the MCs get asked. Hey, what was your favorite? And I'm like, man, I don't know what year it was, but this is what it just all kind of runs together because. We talked with Bill Grunler, Chase Ingram, two of my good friends, and they're for folks that probably know out there, they're commentators. And the difference between commentators and MCs is the commentators are in a booth. They're way more prepared than we are, and things are. I would never say things are moving slowly, but they're calling specifically generally the top heats. Where the MCs are out there, we're out there from, hey, good morning, it's 8 a.m., 3, 2, 1, go, and we're going the whole time. But we're prepared as MCs, but we don't prepare the same way. Like these folks have good nuggets to talk about. They have specific things they want to say about this athlete. Our action is happening so fast, so furious, and so in the moment that and other MCs can. Other MCs can be like, man, I want to say this, this, and this. And I'm like, man, if I try to remember to say that, I'm going to miss all the stuff going on over here because I'm not that smart. I've got to keep it, so everything that I do is just, it's free flowing right then. So unfortunately, I miss a lot of stuff. I don't retain a lot of things. It comes in and goes out. We had that conversation with Brenton's like Rogo and I were talking on a different podcast, and Brenton's one of our other stellar MCs. He's like, hey man, do you remember this? And I'm like, I don't. I remember us being there. I remember what shirt you were wearing, but I don't remember what we were talking about because the moments happen, come and go so fast. Anyway, I'm sorry. Yeah. I interrupted.
No, you didn't. So has there been any thought on your end to maybe like crossover to become a commentator or commentators become MCs? Are they pretty specific independent job?
Yes, sir. I believe they're pretty specific independent jobs, and I'll tell you, the folks that are doing, I don't know if I'd want to be a commentator because, Chase has told me several times, and Bill's done the job. Bill's been on the floor and had to MC at the games in 2010. Got pulled out of the booth to work it, and Bill's like, I'm not doing that again. Chase, we had Kiki Dixon and I were working. I think we were in Atlanta. We were working Southeast, and I believe we were in Atlanta, and we had to leave. Our flights got bumped, and we had to leave early before awards. Well, they had Chase Ingram come out and do the awards, and Chase did a phenomenal job. If you watch it, he's smooth as butter. But he told me afterwards, he's like, dude, I'm not doing that crap again. He said, that was stressful. I'm like, no. I was like, dude, what you do is stressful. He's like, no, man. He said, what you guys do. I love the fact that we all have a very healthy mutual respect for each other's jobs. And again, they know. I've told them before, I said, man, I don't know if I wouldn't want your job. Not that I love it. It would be really cool. But I like what I do. I like being out amongst the crowd. Honestly, if I make a mistake, it's just you and the other people in the house that hear it. Those guys make a mistake, it goes out to everybody. Most folks out there, unless you've been there at a live event, the MCs, you just hear us in the background. But if you've been at a live event, then you understand that if you've ever been to a live event without an MC, you understand how important they are. Because I've been to a couple local events where they're just like, nah. Or I've had a couple of folks that have reached out and we'll send them all our information. They're like, nah, that's okay. We'll do it ourselves. And then we'll get a call, the next year. Hey, that didn't work out well for us. We need for you guys. We need for a couple of you guys to come out. Cause if you don't know what you're doing, we're kind of an afterthought sometimes, but if we're not there, if you don't have an MC that's on his game, time and clock management and athlete management goes right out the window. People go ahead.
Do you do any research? So I know you say you don't prepare like the commentators.
Yeah.
I remember when you were I'm pretty sure you were in Georgia maybe once or in Florida with me as the Atlantic Regional Director. And I remember you were telling me that you were doing some minor research before some of the heats.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you look for? What is it that you look for, you prep to make sure that you're on your game?
Well, a big chunk of it sounds simple, but name pronunciation, because a lot of times you get folks that, probably, heats 3 and 4 with your top 20 athletes. They're probably pretty recognizable names, but a lot of the heat 1 and 2 athletes, especially on day 1, are brand new. We may not have seen them. And you don't want to, end up butchering somebody's name for the entire weekend, which I have done. But also nuggets. If you're looking, and I'll tell you what, Chad Schroeder, who works for HQ, does a great job prepping our guys with information. We get a binder full of information on the athletes. So when I say we don't prep, I try not to come up with stuff that I try not to plan stuff that I'm going to say. But if I know these guys are doing, grace, I can go back and look at, Chad's research and go, okay, well, this guy's, grace time, is, 2 something, so I know, all right, well, he's going to be in this ballpark. So I can kind of spitball, well, we look for this guy to finish right around 2:13. His last grace time, or supposed to grace time is such and such. Or if it's a heavy lift, like, well, we know his squat is, or is his, we know his clean is XYZ, look for him to hit about this mark, or maybe he'll go for a PR. So little nuggets like that, or their times on things. Or if there's something, I'll tell you, Kiki Dixon's phenomenal about it, is plucking things from the individual's personal life. Now, she's got a great rapport with a lot of the athletes on a personal level. So if she knows there's something going on with an athlete, she's always really good about crafting that into stuff that she's saying.
Right.
And so those things are good. But as far as Daniel Petro, who's a Southeast athlete, and this was probably 2013, 2014, I spent the entire weekend calling Daniel Petro, because that's how it's spelled. And I've got a friend whose last name is Petrosky, and we call him Petro. So I spent 3 days at Petro. And I believe it was his dad that came up. And Daniel placed 3rd in regional. So he was going to the CrossFit Games. And I think when I said his name, and in 3rd place, going to the CrossFit Games, Daniel Petro. So they came up afterwards. It may have been right before that, where they come up and they're like, hey, it's actually pronounced Petro. And I'm like, man, I really wish so. I've told everybody, it's like, hey, man, if I'm butchering it early on, please catch me on day 1. Man. Don't let me... although you may tell me on day 1, and by day 3, I'll go back to the way I was saying it before. So,
what's funny.
It is what it is.
The MCs is that. So right after you guys do the award ceremony, I can still see you guys handing over your mics, walking behind the stage, get your bag, and you're out of there, right?
Oh, there's no doubt. There is no doubt, man. We don't. Yeah.
You guys, I'm like,
we're not
like sons of bitches, man. You, the head judges, it's like we're there, and then like we gotta tear shit down.
You're stuck. You're stuck to a tear down.
I'm closing my eyes. I can see you walk around, go around the barricade, go to your little stage, grab your bag. Hey, Mike.
My bag over my shoulder.
You're like, hey, bro, deuces. You're like, peace out.
See you at the after party. And we talk about it. It's like we always feel bad. Not bad enough to stay, but we always feel bad because like you guys are there from build up to tear down. I mean, and talk about the unsung heroes, and people don't, and if you're out there listening, man, I'll tell you, if, when things normalize and there's an event in your area, volunteer. If you don't want to be a judge, man, I understand. I don't want that stress, but volunteer to be on the crew because you'll get an insight into an event that you never knew was possible. I mean, you'll know it in, out, you'll be around the athletes. You're going to be around some of the best people ever. Because they're paying it forward, man. They just want to give back. They just want to be part of the. They just want to be part of the event.
And they have like all the volunteer groupies. They volunteer the judges, the staff services. It was crazy.
Yep.
Hey, so going to Breach and Hold. So you gave this shirt to me in 2014 or 2015, and I remember vividly when you gave it to me because you were telling me a story, about your team was out on a mission. And I don't know if I can say this, if it's appropriate, but they're on a mission and they're chasing the guy down, and I believe they got him, and you were worried because you weren't there. And I listened to a podcast you did, and you told a story, but I think it's a separate story that I'm talking about. If that makes
I think you're talking. Yeah, no, I think the other story that I told in the other podcast, I think our guys had shots fired on a call.
Yeah.
Had shots fired on a hotel situation they did, but I think the situation you're talking about was it was an armed robbery suspect that had hit numerous locations, and leading up to, I think it was the games. I think I gave it to you at games, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Leading up to the games, we had spent probably about our chief at the time, our chief Don Dixon, who's the chief at the time, came out and said, "Hey guys, he's hit numerous locations. He's got a pattern." He said, "We're going to assemble the SWAT team, and we are going to cover every one of these locations every night until we catch him." And we're like, "Oh, this will be no time." Well, we're 30 days into it, and we haven't caught him yet. And I'm like, "Holy crap, man! The games are coming up. We haven't caught him yet." You know, not to be that guy, but guys, it's the CrossFit Games. You know, I mean, you know, so luckily at the time, I had a really good support, staff in the our team administration. And they were like, "No, man," they were all CrossFitters, like, "No, man, go do the games. We'll handle this." And I don't remember how long I'd been gone.
Yes.
But they were able to locate the individual. They were able to, they attempted to, and it was a number of officers, SWAT guys and patrol, attempted to effect a traffic stop, and it became this very, very long pursuit that whipped all through town. And I'll have to see if I can find some of the videos. It was a very harrowing pursuit, and he ended up crashing out at the corner of a local intersection, Lake and Preon Lake Road, right in front of a Wendy's. A little bit of a foot pursuit, and they were able to catch him. But all this is going on while we're at stuff always happened while I was at the games, and I always worry about as well. You don't want to be that guy that's not there when something goes down, and when you're not there and you're 1,000 miles away, you're very much so not there. But yeah, that was this. That I remember that. I remember that vividly.
And you gave me this shirt, and this is for the record for everybody who's listening. This is my favorite shirt. I'm not joking. True story.
Oh, thank you.
True story. About 2 or 3 months ago, I was like, "Where is my CrossFit Breach and Hold shirt?" I'm like, I have 3 daughters here in the house, and I couldn't find it. None of my daughters said, "We don't have it, Dad. Leave us alone." And I was kind of getting a case of the ass because, like I said, I've done Murph in this shirt. I don't know how many years. I did Murph when I was in Honduras, my last day in Honduras with the vest, and I purposely put this shirt on. So this shirt means a lot to me.
That's what I'm talking about. Thank you, brother. That means a lot to me.
No BS.
Thank you.
So
thank you, brother.
So I'm looking for my shirt. Months go by. My daughters say, "Dad, we don't know where that shirt is," and I know one of them has it. And then about a month ago, one of my daughters comes downstairs, walking down with the shirt on, and I said, "I shouldn't have had that shirt. What, this CrossFit shirt? What are you it's just a CrossFit shirt." I'm like, "Sweetheart, that's Breach and Hold CrossFit." I said, "That was a gift from Larry Moss at the 2015 CrossFit Games. I remember when you gave it to me. You gave it to me in one of these those boxes that you guys used to put your stuff in." Yeah, so I remember you gave it to me, and I was like, "I love this shirt." And it has the saying in the back, the whole 9 yards. I'm like,
"Yes,
don't ever touch this shirt again." So leave it alone. This is it, man. I love it.
I'm gonna have to have some more made, brother, and send you another one. I'm gonna have to. I haven't been on my game with that.
I will wear it with pride. Hey, brother, we've been talking for over an hour. I didn't want to go over an hour.
I told you,
dude.
I told you.
I haven't took notes, man.
Dude, and what we haven't talked about yet is, dude, I had no idea you were into jiu-jitsu.
Oh,
and I just started about 18 months ago. I'm so bad. And plus COVID and everything has been kind of slowing us down. But that, and I know, man, I'm gonna give me 2 more minutes.
Go.
I'll tell you, it's been I have a really good friend of mine at the department, one of my team leaders, Mitch Sawyer, and he's a stallion of a guy. CrossFit competitor. He was a team competitor at regionals. It's just a great, great guy. Well, Mitch has been involved in mixed martial arts for years. He's done cage fighting. He's been into jiu-jitsu for years. Just got his brown belt. We're a Horace Gracie school. Well, Mitch had been telling me for years, because I'm a DT instructor, and I'm the victim of the police mentality when it comes to certain things, and have been up until the last couple of years. And Mitch has told me repeatedly, he's like, hey man, you don't know what you don't know, and you need to come to class and just come to a couple classes. And he said, you're a smart guy. You'll understand once you come in. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. I got a badge, I got a gun. I'm a DT instructor. I got it going on. Well, I finally kind of got over myself, and I'm like, all right, dude, I'm going to go to class with you. Well, actually, he wasn't going to class that night. I went to a no-gi class on a Monday night. Very small group of folks. Our instructor that night, Justin, great guy. We go through a bunch of, I'm totally lost. I mean, your first day, you're just, you're trying to figure out how to lay down on your back correctly. And we done a couple guard passing deals, and he said, all right, I want you to partner up with, I'm going to have you roll with Brooke. She's one of the girls. I'm like, okay, cool. And there's a couple of, older girls there. Well, I had no idea that Brooke was a 14-year-old girl, and Brooke schooled me for like about 60 seconds. And I thought, and as a police officer, I'm fighting for my life with this teenager. And I thought, if we were in the street, I don't know what I would do. I would probably I would have to shoot her, because she's all over. And I love Brooke. Brooklyn Weed, if you're listening, I love you. She's 16 now, and she's even more of a monster. But that was eye-opening. And I thought, man, this is, and not that Brooke was a small 14-year-old girl. She's a solid kid. But I thought, man, if this was an adult male, I don't know what I don't know. And I was bought in hook, line, and sinker, to the point that we went to our administration and we said, listen, we're doing our guys a disservice. We need to do something different. We wanted to explore Gracie survival tactics, which is done by the Gracie family, strictly for law enforcement. And we've spent the last going on 2 years now transitioning our department away from standard police defensive tactics into Gracie survival, into jiu-jitsu, which is basically what GST is. To the point now where we have GST sessions throughout the week. Mitch is now in training division as our lead GST instructor. It's been fantastic. So 9 o'clock on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we roll for an hour.
Yeah.
And it's been eye-opening for our department. We have, again, we're not a big department, but out of 200 people, we have about 25 that periodically throughout the month come in to check in, and we'll come in and get a little bit of training. And Mike, the difference we've seen in the performance of our police officers and the change in the use of force has been unbelievable. Situations where officers weren't sure what to do or overreacted because they kind of went from this to this didn't work. So they kind of start going to stuff on their belt, and then things can get kind of sketchy from there. Because you're steeped in jiu-jitsu as well. Once you've if you spend an hour a week rolling with somebody, grappling with somebody on the street, is just, you're there, man. You've been there before. It's not shocking to your system. You're like, no, oh my God, what do I do? This guy's got both legs over me. Oh, he's got me in the mount. Oh, well, I did this before, so let me, I'll hip escape out of this, or I'll buck it right. It's been, and again, I'm blabbering now, but we as police officers, whether it's firearms, defensive tactics, or any other important discipline, most of those qualification schools to teach are 40 hours. And you can imagine if you went to a 40-hour jiu-jitsu school and had to come back and teach your entire department, how bad that would be. You could get pretty good at it, but I mean, really, we're very lucky that we've got we got a brown belt and several blue belts and some guys that help teach, that actually know what's going on. Because I went to the 4-hour class and I'm like, man, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for about 8 months when I went, and I'm like, man, it was a great class for me because it was all basic jiu-jitsu for a week. But coming back and teaching an entire department that with limited knowledge is kind of sketchy. But when you've got folks that really have their stuff together, it's amazing. So hopefully you and I are going to end up somewhere. I'll bring some rash guard, and I see you and your kids rolling. I'm like, that's so awesome, man. That's so awesome.
You made a couple great comments. The first is jiu-jitsu is that when you go roll at your academy or your gym, you are doing live sparring. That translates directly to if you have to control someone outside in the civilian world. There's no like, if he grabs this and you want to do this. No, when you're rolling, you are actually implementing the same tactics, and you're learning from different people who you roll with on how to subdue them, how to do it gently, how to do it without mega force or a gun or spray. But yeah, we love it, and I couldn't agree more with you about law enforcement really needs to go to some of that jujitsu, because the Gracie family, the Henry Gracie Academy online out of Torrance, they are proponents of law enforcement need more training, not just the 40 hours a year or the once a week or however.
Oh yeah.
And so here you guys are doing it. Sounds like you're doing everything right with your PT tests, with it, right? I mean, with the jujitsu, it's more so.
Trying.
Yeah, it's more so than I think most people. I have some police officers at my gym, and they tell me straight up. They're like, I'm like, come with me to jujitsu. They're like, to what? I'm like, you need to come with me to jujitsu. And like, well, I don't think I really want to be on the ground. I'm like, you need to be on the ground rolling with people. And as a dad, I want my girls to be strong. I want them to know how to defend themselves.
Absolutely.
A guy's going for a two-handed choke. I want them to know, how to roll somebody over.
Right.
Do you agree? Speaking of which, do you have?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Do you have kids?
Sir?
Do you have any kids?
I do. I have one stepson, Tyler, who I've been with since we've been together since he was little. He's not little anymore. He's 26. He's all out on his own. He's definitely his own man. No interest. Tyler, if you're listening, I love you, buddy. No interest in law enforcement, which I'm good with that. Here in the Lake area, petrochemical industry is very, very big. So he went to college, got a degree in process technology, which is a high dollar, highly sought after field. And he worked his way through school, laying tile and laying flooring and doing some very manual labor. He graduated and told his mother and I, he's like, man, thank you guys so much. It's I love it. It's awesome to have a degree. He said, I don't want to do that for a living. I want to keep doing what I'm doing for a living. And I told him, we my wife, much to her chagrin, we're having a passionate discussion about it over the dinner table, and he threw something back in my face that was rough. He said, somebody told me one time that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I was like, damn, I said that. He's like, yeah, you did. And I love what I do. So he's out doing his thing. He wants to run his own company one day. And I say, hey man, as long as you don't want to just be a laborer for the rest of your life. He's like, oh no. He said, I want to run the show. He said, someday. I'm like, well, all right, well, we'll talk about it whenever, he's 25 now and he's doing great. He's got a girlfriend and he's got a car note and he's got a house note. So he's doing good. He's a good kid. No desire to do law enforcement. He's done CrossFit a little bit. I tried to get him to jiu-jitsu. It's not his thing. So it is what it is. It took me 50 years. So
here's the deal. Here's the handshake is that if the games happens in Madison, I'm going to go and be a spectator. I'm going to take my gi and we will find a place to go roll and just have some fun.
I'm down, dude. I'm absolutely down because there's so many people behind the scenes that are into it as well that I didn't know. Adrian Bosman's been big into jiu-jitsu. Of course, you got Jay. Yes, Jay. Adrian actually competed and won a tournament. As well. I don't know if he's still competing, but he did it. Oh man, we ran into each other at CrossFit Mayhem at a competition, and I hadn't brought anything. We ran into each other. I knew he was doing it. He knew I was doing it. I'm like, dude, if I'd have known, I'd have brought my shit. I said we could have found somewhere to roll. And so anyway, we made a promise to do it at the games, and then the next year the games didn't happen. So
oh man, dude. All right, so it's a date, man.
It's a deal. It's a deal, dude. We'll do it. Or if I come to San Antonio for anything, I'll come find you.
Oh, dude,
and we'll hang out. Come to your academy. We'll roll.
Yeah,
you can sling me all over the place. It's cool because I'm so bad, Mike. I'm so bad. Dude. I'm that dude. Dude, you're a coach. And I'm sure we have coaches that are listening. That CrossFit client that comes in that you're like after the first week you're like, oh, this guy's just man. Oh my god. Well, that's me. That's me when I start CrossFit. That's also me in jiu-jitsu.
No way.
So it is. It's terrible, but I love it, man. It's it's a good place to be. You only get better if you keep going. Yeah, you have to do it 1,000 times wrong before you get it right. So I'm almost there.
What's cool about it is that when you come to San Antonio is that I also have mats at my gym. I have mats and me and some friends we roll after hours.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Even better. So from there for a day competition, we'll roll at your place at night.
Yeah. Hey, and then
That's it. That's awesome.
Do you think you'll ever come back for Eternity Con? 'Cause I think you were the MC.
Yes.
This year,
Yes. No, I couldn't make it this year. I couldn't come because of the hurricane this year.
Or last year.
We were still, well, yeah. You know, I was set to do one in October. Noah Dean ended up having to do it by himself because I got jammed up and couldn't. I was on the clock here and just couldn't leave.
Damn. All right. Well, look, brother, it's got an hour and 15 minutes.
I know, man. My battery's almost dead on this thing. So.
Serious. All right. So, brother, it was so great talking to you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the memories. I hope to run into you again at the games. If not, maybe some event locally. And we're going to roll and we're going to WOD, baby. And
absolutely. I'm down, dude.
I'm going to wear this shit with pride, man.
All right, brother. I love you, Mike. I'll see you soon.
All the love, man. All right.
All right, buddy.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, so